The Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio for Thursday, January 23rd. I'm your host, Andy McNeil. Back for another big slate of hockey with my buddy Nick Martin from DFO. Nick, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it, as always. Hopefully we'll have a good one here.
All right. You're kind of low there, Nick, if we're being honest. I can't hear you all that well. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's my volume. One sec. Yeah, let's hear. I'll turn you up. All right. That's my fault. Sorry, guys. We're not actually friends, so we don't actually talk before the show starts. We just wait till we go live and talk. So,
But it seems like sometimes.
Yeah, well, we talk so much here that we don't need to talk much elsewhere. But what was I going to say? Oh, the Boston Bruins suck ass. That's what I was going to say. What a terrible showing for the Bruins last night. They, got off to a good start with that nice little tap in by Morgan Geekie, but that was all they got. And the New Jersey Devils took over from there, winning the game 5-1. But hey, at least we're not the Toronto Maple Leafs losing 5-1 to the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I guess all is not, lost here, but pretty terrible performance from the Boston Bruins last night. You bet on the Ottawa Senators yesterday, so let's start there, Nick. You still like the Senators, or what's happened here with the betting lines?
Yeah, I mean, I like our original bet, obviously, seeing where the market's gone. I'm pretty shocked that it's moved this much. I pointed out yesterday that I thought we'd see it move once people kind of piece together that it would likely be a Korpisalo start. I think the Sens have been playing pretty respectably, so all in all, I felt the opening numbers in the minus 105 range were off, but I'm quite surprised to see it's moved this much. I've been kind of anxiously trying to keep my eye out for what news might come out about the Bruins, because it seems kind of crazy that this movement is just strictly from the market taking shape. But I guess from what I understand, that's all it is. But yeah, and I mean, maybe part of that too is you see the way the Bruins performed last night versus the Devils. I did add Jack Hughes to hit 4 shots, which got there, but I also added Swayman to go over his save prop. And that second period pull left him 1 short of what I needed. So
Ouch.
That was tough to see that one. But yeah, I think the Bruins, we've kind of talked about it a lot, but I just feel like they do have a lot of problems right now. Obviously on the back end, not having Lindholm and McAvoy hurts a lot. And I just look at their lineup. They don't have the center depth to play, I think, or to really just match up versus anyone's high quality units. I think they're obviously struggling to find decent play down the middle. I feel like the guys that are expected to do what they can on the wing, like Pasternak, Marchand, I don't think they've been overly bad by any means, but I feel like you look at this roster right now and it just seems like one that held up a little too much value entering the year. So I know they have been a little better recently, but I definitely liked the Sens at their opening price, but I don't know if we need to dwell on that too much longer, given that they're now minus 160, and I wouldn't endorse a bet at that price.
Yeah, over at Pinnacle, Ottawa on the money line, minus 152. Boston on the other side, plus 137. That Swayman pull though does leave me to wonder if they do maybe intend to start him tonight.
That's a good point. Yeah,
because I mean, if you are sure that you're going to go with Korpisalo the next night, then you might as well just leave Swayman in there for the rest of the game, right? But the fact that they pulled him makes me wonder if they might go back to him tonight. So I would just expect if that happens, we'll see a little bit of movement towards the Bruins. But man, it's pretty hard to it was easy to convince myself into betting Boston last night against a Devils team that has really struggled offensively, not only offensively, but has lost a lot of games as of late. At that price, that plus 200 range, 2-1. But now it's this Senators team, especially given what we saw in the last game versus Ottawa. You'd expect Ottawa to pretty much dominate the play tonight and carry it versus the Boston Bruins. So it's going to be a tough game for Boston, and they're losing a lot of ground in the playoff race here. A team that has made up a lot of ground in the playoff race is the Montreal Canadiens, 13-3-1 since December 17th. December 17th. Yep, December 17th. They find themselves tied with the Ottawa Senators, identical records. The Sens do hold the tiebreaker, though, with one more regulation win than the Canadians right now. But things are pretty tight there in the Eastern Conference wildcard race. And the Canadians are in Detroit trying to keep the Red Wings behind them, which pretty even game as far as the odds go. But I do like one player prop in this one. It's Uri Slafkovsky to go over 0.5 points. He has 12 points in his last 20 games, has scored in 11 of those games, and he's been particularly hot as of late. Still not shooting the puck quite enough for my liking, and that's why I'm not betting on him to score an anytime goal, but he is on that top line and the top power play, skating alongside Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, and of course Lane Hudson, who is on a tear right now. But yeah, I think with so much hype and so much attention being given to Caulfield and Hudson, Slafkovsky, from a betting perspective, kind of flying under the radar here, and you can get him to score a point at plus 115 at Bet365. And I think that's a pretty good bet given his scoring rate as of late. Nick, do you see anything about this game that you find interesting from a betting perspective?
No, not too much from a betting perspective. I think from a fan perspective, it's going to be really interesting. They played twice in December. The Canadians won both. They're obviously really important games based off where they're at in the standings. And those two losses were a big part of the Red Wings finally deciding to bring in or to fire Lalonde and bring in Todd McClellan. So I think it'll be interesting to see from a Red Wings perspective if they can play Montreal a little better. I think in the prop market, there's a lot of guys that look appealing, but I didn't end up with anything there.
Yeah. Just the Slafkovsky anytime goal over 0.5 points at plus 115 for me. Let's keep moving along here. Yep, I do want to mention 4 in 6 nights for the Ottawa Senators and fourth game in 6 nights for the Montreal Canadiens and Detroit Red Wings. Of course, the Bruins playing back-to-back. So nobody really rested in these games. So makes it maybe a little bit tougher to handicap. Also, the 4th game in 6 nights for the New York Rangers, who are hosting the Philadelphia Flyers, and a back-to-back for Columbus against the Carolina Hurricanes, who are playing their 3rd game in 4 nights. You like a player prop in this game, right, Nick? And you also bet the Hurricanes yesterday to cover the puck line. Where's that line at, and are you happy with that bet now?
Yeah, I'm happy with it right now. It was minus 122 when we gave it out. It actually there's even minus 120s out there yesterday evening for a little bit. So happy to see where the lines moved, but obviously doesn't mean we've won. And the player prop that I like Natchez to get 3 shots. It was at plus 120. It seems like it's coming down a little bit. Bet365 still at plus 110. But I think it's a good look for a lot of reasons here. Obviously, everyone's going to expect Carolina to have probably one of their 35 shot performances in this matchup versus Columbus, who traveled out of Toronto last night. And I kind of like targeting this second line or third line, whatever you want to call it, of the Hurricanes right now, of Natchez playing alongside Kotkaniemi and Eric Robinson. I thought their play really stood out in those 2 games this week, the back-to-back versus Chicago and Dallas. They did really good in terms of shot share, plus 1 goal differential. And Natchez is still a really big part of that first power play unit as well, which should fare pretty well versus a bad Columbus penalty kill. So I think it's a good time to buy on him. His shot volume has been way down, but I think it will trend up if that unit keeps looking the way it has recently. So I thought that his number kind of stuck out a lot based off where it was. Obviously, shots are way down this year, but I do think this is at the point where this is a pretty good adjustment with him opening at plus 120. I'd still play the plus 110s that are out there. So yeah, I think that's a good bet.
Yeah, absolutely. The Utah Hockey Club in Minnesota taking on the Wild, and some big news out of Minnesota. We know Philip Gustafson is going to be in goal versus Karel Vejmelka. Mikhail Sergachev remains out for the Utah Hockey Club, but the Wild getting 2 big players back. Obviously, Kirill Kaprizov is the biggest addition to the lineup. He's going to make his first appearance in a while, and Jared Spurgeon as well. So a big boost for Minnesota here heading into this matchup. But obviously the odds reflect both of those moves for the Wild. Your Calgary Flames. Well, I shouldn't say your Calgary Flames. You're kind of a half Flames fan, I guess. I don't know, Just when they're good, you like them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go to a game and maybe cheer them on depending on who they're playing, I guess.
Yeah. They're coming off a 4-day break hosting the Buffalo Sabres. What do you think about this Sabres team? I mean, they are just, man, I don't know. They're, they get that win over the Canucks, but they're dead last in the Eastern Conference right now. Any hope for this team tonight, or the Flames in a pretty good spot here?
I actually kind of like the Sabres here, if anything, and I don't really want to pump their tires too hard. I was the one I was kind of mad on passing for was that Vancouver game, but I think that all of the indicators that do kind of suggest the team has been slightly unlucky, and all the ones you see that run with a team that holds one of the worst money line ROIs, which the Sabres do. I think they have the second worst right now. Go with the Sabres. They've been brutal with leads, so obviously that comes down partly to the team just not being able to defend in the big moments. But I do think they've been a little unlucky there. But they're below 500 in games headed past regulation. And their underlying results are a little better than I think you'd probably expect based off where they're at in the standings. So I think there's a little bit to like about the Sabres. They have kind of bounced back to some extent since Darlene returned too. They're 7-7-1. I think offensively, I almost, maybe it's incorrect to say, but in my head, I feel like I like a lot more of their top pieces than the Flames. So I kind of think they have an edge there. But what's kind of crushed them this year is I think their goaltending too has been a lot worse than expected. So it's kind of just been a perfect storm of flaws. But to some extent, I kind of think they are playing better right now. And I feel like the last 2 wins have been a pretty good case towards that. And overall, the Flames just feels like they're so likely to get into these coin flip type games with anyone. The other news, or the other really important thing here, is I had not yet seen confirmation on Dustin Wolf, which was part of the reason I was kind of waiting to finish up my Flames guide here. Oh, so he's just been confirmed. Okay, so that's pretty notable because we've talked about it a lot. But with Wolf, the Flames are winning at, it's close to 115-point pace after the win versus the Jets. And with Vladar in, they've been one of the least profitable betting sides in the league. So maybe some of that is luck. Maybe some of that is the spots they put Vladar in. But I think at this point, getting pretty hard to dispute the splits between the two.
Yeah, and to your point there, the Nashville Predators still the least profitable money line bet in the NHL, minus 15.8 units based on 1 unit betting size on each game. But yeah, the Buffalo Sabres next, minus 9.6 units. And after that, it is a team we'll talk about a little bit later, the Vancouver Canucks, obviously in a big matchup versus the Edmonton Oilers tonight. But before we move on, just talk, obviously we're talking about the Flames coming off this big break here, 4-day break. Year to date, the home team is winning 60% of the games when they have more rest than the road team. When these teams are on equal rest, the road and the home team, it's 54.4% for the home team. When the home team has less rest, they win just 45% of the game. So big swing here based on rest. And if you look at the implied odds, not a big swing. So there's definitely, I don't want to say you can blindly bet against tired teams, but there definitely is some edges to be had in factoring in rest and fatigue when you're handicapping NHL games, and it certainly affects the total as well. But yeah, speaking of rested teams, the Pittsburgh Penguins in Anaheim taking on the Ducks. But I did skip over the Edmonton and Vancouver game here. I didn't realize that was as far or as high on the list in order as I thought it was. But the Canucks in Edmonton to take on the Oilers, a rematch from Saturday. Vancouver won that game, and if you'd only watched that one Canucks game, you might think they were the best team in the NHL because not only did they beat the Oilers 3-2, they really dominated play. They owned 75% of the expected goals in that game, 60% of the shots. It was not a good game for the Edmonton Oilers, but as we know, the Vancouver Canucks have not done that very much this season. So it'll be interesting. One interesting note, though, heading into this game, outside of the fact that Connor McDavid is serving the second game of a 3-game suspension for his cross-check on Canucks forward Connor Garland, it's going to be Calvin Pickard starting in this one. And that was a bit of a surprise to me because, I think Edmonton, you look at the recent history in games without McDavid. They're 2-2 this season without McDavid, 4-7-1 without him since the start of the 2021-22 season. And big difference in goals per game, 2.33 goals per game without McDavid since 21-22 compared to 3.65 goals per game with him in the lineup. So obviously that means more pressure is on the goaltenders in these matchups. And, for a guy like Skinner, who has done a pretty good job, holding opponents to 2 or fewer goals overall in the last couple of months. It's a little bit surprising that they go with Picard in this matchup because in all of the games that the Oilers have allowed more than 2 goals with Connor McDavid out of the lineup, they've come away with a loss. So it hasn't been a good recipe. They're going to need their best effort from Picard tonight. But I'm going with Leon Draisaitl to get over 1.5 points. He's registered multiple points in 3 straight games, 6 of his last 9 as well. And actually, he's registered 2 or more points in 25 out of 47 games this season, so around 53%. And 3 out of the 4 games he's played without McDavid, he's also done that. 2 of them were 3-point performances. So he's really stepped up in McDavid's absence. And, you would expect him to try to do so again on Thursday. He only has 4 multi-point performances in 12 regular season games against Vancouver since 21-22, but he has registered at least 1 point in 11 of those games. So he's always on the score sheet. So he's going to be in the mix to get 2 points. And I put a lot more stock into how he's playing right now than past matchups against the Canucks. So I think at plus 111, that's the current price at Pinnacle. Leon Draisaitl over 1.5 points is a pretty good bet. But the Canucks, obviously the goaltending situation for Edmonton might change things a little bit. Picard has been good, but Vancouver, they have barely been a profitable money line bet on the road. But they have not been a good underdog on the road. They've only won 5 of 13 games against home favorites this season. So a big difference there. They started out 10-2 on the road this season, but they are just 2-4-4 since December 3rd away from home. So not great for the Canucks. And the Oilers, while they have won 15 of 23 games as home favorites this season, roughly 65%, that is pretty much in line with their odds or their average odds. So it hasn't been good enough to be a profitable money line bet at home this season. Anything you like in this game? Obviously, I gave you the day off by writing about this one over at Canucks Army. But do you see anything from a betting perspective that you like here? Are you interested in Vancouver now that Picard is starting?
Yeah, not really, honestly. And thanks for giving me a day off from slandering the Canucks, but I guess we'll still do it. I think the one interesting point from everything you said was, I remember it was exactly that when Vancouver played Utah and we thought Utah was a good bet, ended up being a close game. Utah won in overtime, but we were talking before that game because there's a lot of people who couldn't believe the price when Vancouver's record was what it was on the road. But we were talking a lot about how they'd run pretty favorably to have that record, and it looked like it could probably level off moving forward, and that's exactly what happened. So I think a bit of an interesting kind of logical thought process betting wise to be keeping in mind there. And I feel like the Canucks, you also talked about how the Oilers game was one of their best in a while. They've had like 5 of those games where it felt like the potential turning point. Their shutout win versus Florida, that Canucks game, or that game, obviously there's been a few like that on home ice, and since they got their guys back, where it feels like the one where things are going to turn around, and they followed up with just 3 or 4 bad games in a row. And I think the reality is that's just because those good games are the outliers right now.
Yeah,
and this team's just not that good. So and we've talked about it a lot, and maybe they'll prove me wrong here, but I just continue to look at all the flaws, and if you eliminate last year, like, why would people be viewing this as a team that is this good right now? I don't see it at all, really. They've got 2 useful defenders. The offensive core is really hit or miss. So, yeah, I just feel like not that much to like. And the other thing is Thatcher Demko has really struggled. So I feel for him. I don't know if he's still not 100% or if he's just had a hard time getting in rhythm. But he's really not been great since he has returned. So that's kind of been a big part of the problem. So, yeah, I like your looks here. I think Draisaitl's obviously really stood out and been quite dominant. I think we'll see the Oilers play quite well here. It was surprising to go with Picard, I thought, because this feels like a pretty heated rivalry right now. I think the Canucks caught the Oilers in a really favorable spot on Saturday. They were at the tail end of that road trip, and I think a lot of people were kind of expecting a letdown game there. So we'll see how they respond here in a much more reasonable scheduling spot. But yeah, I'm definitely not really interested in touching the Canucks, even with McDavid out and Pickard in goal.
Sorry, I'm laughing because just looked at this reading this Canucks Army article about JT Miller, Saravelli reporting that the Rangers wanted the Canucks to retain salary on that. Apparently, the trade that was nixed on Saturday between Vancouver and New York. So that's a bit interesting.
I'm really intrigued to see what the final trade for Miller is if they do it, because I think it's very debatable what his actual value should be. Because you look at the way he has produced and when he's on his game, how much of a difference maker he is. But he's also on the wrong side of the age curve. He's been pretty bad this year. His defensive awareness has been terrible. Like, I think he obviously competes hard, but I think he just has had a really hard time being in the right spots at times this season, on top of the lethargic play, which I just feel like. But the other thing is he's kind of just been completely on and off with, like, it feels like he kind of plays his way out of some of these places. And then when he gets into a better role after the trade, I don't think it would be surprising to anyone to see him kind of have a resurgence the second half of the year. But I think it's really hard to try to gauge what the actual value within the league right now is for him.
Yeah, I was laughing because the Daily Faceoff Twitter account really did Tyler Yaremchuk dirty with the way they started this video. They have his face frozen in a very awkward position. So, Jake, I know you're listening. Don't do me like that when you clip videos of us, please. Show me in the best light that you can. I know it's hard, but get me in something like that. Not like
don't make Andy's hair rest in the
frame. But yeah, I agree. It's pretty interesting. You got to wonder with Miller too. Like, I mean, this has been going on for a while now, and you just it. I don't care what job you're doing, whether you're an NHL player or a Daily Faceoff hockey analyst, right? Like, if you're stressed at work, it's probably going to impact your job performance. So I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to judge a guy right now with all this going on. If DFO was publicly trying to trade me to another company, I don't know if I'd be, putting in my best effort at work every day, right? So, it's an analogy, like I'm just saying, right? Like,
I hear you though. Like, I do think, but that's the thing. It sounds like whatever people are going to pay for him, they're kind of banking on the idea that they're going to get close to the Miller that he was last year. So
for sure.
Yeah, I really am interested to see the deal. I hope it happens, to be honest, after all this. Not that I dislike Miller or like I really want him to be out of Vancouver, but I just feel like the NHL, like the amount of times you hear all this hype and nothing happens sometimes, it's just painful. I'd like to just see it happen just for something exciting to go on.
Yeah, I wish it was easier to make trades. I mean, all the other leagues do it so well, and there's so many blockbuster trades, and it's so exciting. And there's, on the one hand, I don't love the player move. Like, I don't love like players constantly moving around. You'd like to, especially for the fans of that team, they want to, get their guys and hold on to them. But it definitely makes it exciting for the casual fan, the guy that's, interested in all 32 teams. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game tonight. I mean, obviously it's like a revenge game, but it's not like Garland, attacked Connor McDavid and did something like really, dastardly. Like he just held him at the end of the game. And
yeah, it's not like McDavid was ever going to get hurt in that scenario.
Yeah. So it's not like I don't know that they'll be like out for blood tonight, right? It's not like it was a retaliation to a dirty hit or something. If that was the case, then maybe, but I still think, tensions are going to be high, and it's going to be on the Oilers to, unlike McDavid, not let their emotions get the best of them, because it's an important 2 points here.
And obviously the Oilers did lose to the Caps, which helped us out, but very unlucky loss. So I think even though it didn't go great, they did show that they're obviously right now is still pretty good side without McDavid. So I do think that's noteworthy as well.
Yeah, 70% of the shots and 65% of the expected goals in favor of the Oilers against the Capitals. But Logan Thompson, man, continues to be unreal. So uh, yeah, I feel like you could build a pretty good Team Canada off with all the players that they snubbed for this Four Nations Cup. That's for sure.
I think it would
But
be hilarious if they sent two B teams for USA and Canada just to
yeah.
shake it up. The tournament's, I don't want to say a bit of a gimmick or novelty, anyways, but it's not like it's the Olympics, so maybe that would have been a fun thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. Pittsburgh and Anaheim, the Penguins coming off a 2-day break here. They're on I believe a season-long 7-game road trip, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken. I put a lot of I do a lot of work on the NHL schedule at the start of the week, but then sometimes it all kind of blurs together by the end of the week. um, but yeah, the Washington Capitals, your Washington Capitals in action tonight against the Seattle Kraken. It's going to be a Charlie Lindgren start, right?
Yeah, Lindgren is confirmed, which you had been anticipating. I actually think the Kraken are a solid bet at plus 120.
Okay.
Shout out to the Caps for getting that win for us, but it has been, I think, just too much of that lately. And I could see a little bit of a letdown here. Lindgren obviously has been a lot worse than Thompson. I don't know if he's been as bad as his numbers. I mean, you've kind of talked about how, and I know goals saved of expected is meant to quantify shot quality, but I do think he's kind of been in there just logically in one of the games where you could see the Caps kind of left, or a lot of the games where the Caps left him out to dry. But the Caps have really fallen off badly recently. I think you look at their offensive shot creation, it's been pretty ugly for about 20 games here. They're right at the bottom of the league there. So I think they're probably due for some regression on that front. I do think that Seattle, too, is a team that I've been probably overly high on this year, but I still look at the makeup of their lineup. I don't think they should be this bad. I feel like I like the defensive core. And now that they've got Kako and Schwartz powering a pretty decent top line, I look at the depth of the lineup and I don't mind it either. So I think as long as you're going to get a Joey Decord start here, I'm happy with the plus 120. If it's Grubauer, I would pass. We've talked about it a lot, how the Kraken are pretty much two different teams, whether they have Grubauer or Decord in net. But I think we actually will see the Kraken own more of the play here and not necessarily look like a plus 120 underdog. And if it's Decord versus Lindgren, they have a bit of a goaltending advantage. So I actually think, as ugly as it is when you look at their differing records, that the Kraken are a pretty good bet here.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of to circle back on the Washington Capitals and the Edmonton Oilers game, the biggest reason that I wanted to go to that game specifically was to see Ovechkin. I had never watched Ovechkin live. I've been to a lot of NHL games, just never had the chance to see the Capitals live. And as much as I love Ovi, it's a little bit sad to watch him, where he's at right now because he's not moving around very much out there. He gets to
Yeah,
his
he
he gets
has.
to his spot, and it's definitely like I definitely had that moment of my son. He's 9 years old. I was just kind of teaching him about all the stuff that Ovechkin has done, and I'm like, yeah, like he gets to that spot and he does, he looks for the one timer and he has one of the best shots in hockey, but um you know if you could have seen him 10 years ago, kind of, right?
That's the
Like
thing. At least you know that. I can't stand when I listen to people who, like, there's always that one guy sitting there hating on Ovechkin at the game who thinks he's been like that his whole career,
yeah,
and
that's
it just
crazy.
drives me nuts. But and Ovechkin we've kind of talked about this earlier on in the year. He was doing a much better job at even strength, at doing
Yeah.
more than just standing there waiting for his shots. But he's leveled off, and so is Dylan Strome. Dylan Strome, we kind of were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and he's on, I think, a 4-game pointless streak, and he's looked very disengaged and not overly productive at all. So yeah, there's definitely some flaws there. I'm hoping Ovi has it when he comes to Calgary, though, because he's been
Yeah.
in my life. I'd have to total up, like, look at the actual stats, but it feels like he's averaging over a goal per game when I've seen him in Calgary. So
Huh.
fingers crossed for Tuesday.
Yeah, and to be fair, the guy did just return from a broken leg after 5 weeks, so it makes sense that he's not quite pushing it skating wise, right? But yeah, I mean, yeah, anybody that thinks he wasn't, I don't know. He to me when I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you watch that guy play. It was like if somebody designed the prototypical hockey player in a lab, they would have designed Alexander Ovechkin. He, not only led the league in goals, but hits a lot of the time as well, and was just, a force up and down the ice. So I think, yeah, it's too bad that if you didn't get to witness him in his prime, because he was something else. But the last game on the slate is Nashville and San Jose. So I don't think we have much to talk about there, because the Preds are a big favorite, clearly, against the Sharks. But yeah, I guess unless you want to bet on the San Jose Sharks, I don't know why you would want to bet on the Nashville Predators as a big favorite at this point.
You cannot bet on the Sharks with Georgiev and goal.
Georgiev,
I don't
yeah.
think. I think it's just that last Nashville game was absurd. Like, that was just, it almost just seems like blatant tanking, to be honest, that he's still getting like 3 out of every 4 starts. To me, at least. I don't know. I feel like everyone is seeing what's going on. A lot of people are calling him Tank Commander. It kind of looks like it. So yeah, I didn't really have too much on that one yet. The one bet that I hadn't touched on was, I like Raquel to score in Anaheim versus his former side. Obviously, Anaheim's been really bad defensively, but Raquel has been absolutely on fire, and I feel like it's flying under the radar. But over the last 20 games, he's got 22 points and 13 goals. So it's third most goals in the league in that span. His point per game average is actually a little bit above Crosby's in that sample. And if you look at his recent chance creation, he's finishing more chances than is probably sustainable. But over the last 10 games, he's also generated 5.6 individual expected goals from 58 attempts. So yeah, there's plus 210 out there. I think that's a solid look here. I feel like we'll see that top line continue to fare really well, get a lot of looks versus the Ducks. And then the last note on that one too, Raquel did miss the game Tuesday in Los Angeles for personal reasons, but he practiced yesterday, and it seems like he's going to be back in his regular roles. So I think it's a good spot for him to score, or if you wanted to back him in the shot prop market, he's at even money for 3. So I think that's also a good option.
Gotcha. Yeah, and just quickly looking ahead to Friday, all of the road teams, even the Lightning, who are coming off a 2-day break, are at a rest disadvantage against the home teams. The Islanders, coming off a 3-day break, they'll face the Flyers on the second half of a back-to-back. Like as mentioned, the Blackhawks have had 3 days off in their game against the Lightning, who will also be well rested. The Dallas Stars are going to host the Vegas Golden Knights on the second half of a back-to-back, and the Winnipeg Jets have only had 1 day off, but the Utah Hockey Club is playing against the Wild tonight, and they'll be in Winnipeg to play the Jets tomorrow. So it's going to be a bit of a tough slate tomorrow, because 3 out of the 4 of the games, the home team is going to be a pretty big favorite here. So that might make it a little bit tougher to find something on a from the perspective of the sides, but I guess player props, totals, stuff like that might be a little bit easier to come by. Anything you like, Nick?
No, yeah, I was thinking exactly with you. I like the Islanders opened a lot closer, and now they're already up to minus 175. I thought that spot looked pretty appealing if it's going to be probably Fedotov in goal with a huge rest advantage for the Isles. I felt like that was going to be a tough spot for Philly, but now the numbers moved a lot, and Philly really has played quite respectably. I don't think there's probably a team that illustrates how hopeless you are with bad goaltending than the Flyers, because they've been winning some games lately now that their goalies have stabilized. But I really do think that their bad results or middling results has just come down to how bad the goaltending's been. They've had really bad save percentage on low and mid-range shots, or mid-danger shots, I should say, and it's just clearly hurt them. I think more than probably anyone else, I watch the Flyers and think this looks like a pretty respectable team that's just getting sewered by bad goaltending. So I do like them, but I think at times that's also maybe their strong underlying profile has helped to keep them priced more evenly in some matchups than you might expect. So yeah, I thought the Islanders were a good bet, but maybe the minus 175 is a little much.
Yeah, that is definitely a little much for a team that is the 4th least profitable team this season. Yep, 4th least profitable team right there with the Canucks and the Sabres this year. So not a good bet on most nights, and they haven't been a great home team. But yeah, that could change. So we'll see about that. But until next week, that does it for the Puck Portfolio. Thanks for joining us this week. We will see you on Tuesday for another show at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. right here on the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel. Drop a like on the video and a comment if you would like, and we will maybe get to that next week.